Thank you, Brooke. Today we celebrate President's Day with another quiet reflection on the role of the presidency. Just kidding. The lead starts right now. Breaking news. After Michael Flynn's sudden firing, President Trump picks his new national security advisor. Who is General H.R. Mcmaster, and why did the president hire him? Take two. President Trump expected to sign an updated travel ban this week. Will the same 7 mostly Muslim countries be on the list, and will this one crucially survive the courts? Plus, an assassination caught on tape. The new video that shows Kim Jong-un's half-brother being taken out in an extremely bizarre way. Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jim Sciutto, in again for Jake Tapper. We begin with breaking news in our politics lead. After the very early dismissal of General Michael Flynn, President Trump this afternoon took us by surprise, announcing from his resort in Florida that Army Lieutenant General, that's 3 stars, H.R. Mcmaster is his new national security advisor.
He's a man of tremendous talent and tremendous experience. I watched and read a lot over the last 2 days. He is highly respected by everybody in the military, and we're very honored to have him.
General Mcmaster is a career Army officer who commanded troops in the Gulf War, also in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, leading a successful counterinsurgency offensive at one of the lowest points of the Iraq War, this little more than a decade ago. Right now, Mr. Trump is preparing to leave Florida and return to the White House. That's Air Force One there, out on the runway. This after a weekend of campaigning that led to even more confusion with another close U.S. ally. CNN senior White House correspondent Jeff Zeleny, he joins me now from the White House. So a bit of a surprise announcement here, a quick decision to get a new national security advisor into place.
Indeed it was, Jim, and the president will be flying back here to Washington with his new national security advisor in tow. He's trying to move beyond one of the biggest controversies of his first month in office as he gets ready for his second.
General H.R.
President Trump naming a new national security advisor tonight, Lieutenant General H.R. Mcmaster.
He's a man of tremendous talent and tremendous experience. I watched and read a lot over the last 2 days. He is highly respected by everybody in the military, and we're very honored to have him.
The president making the announcement at his Mar-a-Lago resort. Mcmaster to replace General Michael Flynn, forced to resign after misleading the vice president over his calls with the Russian ambassador. Mcmaster, a distinguished soldier, rising through the ranks to become a chief army strategist.
I'm grateful to you for that opportunity, and I look forward to joining the national security team and doing everything I can to advance and protect the interests of the American people.
The president filling the key position in his national security team before heading back to the White House after a long President's Day weekend in Florida.
A great spirit of optimism and sweeping, and you see it. It's sweeping all across the country.
Returning to the campaign trail for the first time as president, his words now carrying more weight, enough to spark another diplomatic dust-up, this time with Sweden.
You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible.
The president later saying he saw a report on Fox News which incorrectly said immigrants are causing a spike in crime in Sweden. A former Swedish prime minister firing back on Twitter. Sweden? Terror attack? What has he been smoking? Questions abound. In Brussels today, Vice President Pence speaking about Flynn's resignation for the first time.
I would tell you that I was disappointed to learn that the facts that had been conveyed to me by General Flynn were inaccurate.
The vice president expressing a commitment to NATO even as he sought reassurances from U.S. allies.
Who should European leaders listen to, you or President Trump? And can they be certain that what you say, the assurances you give, won't be contradicted in a tweet or a statement at a press conference tomorrow?
As I said today, through many leaders, we look forward to working across the channel with all parties in the years ahead on behalf of peace and prosperity.
The president's divisive criticism of the media, which he called the enemy of the American people, also reverberating around the world.
Rest assured, both the president and I strongly support a free and independent press, but you can anticipate that the president and all of us will continue to call out the media when they play fast and loose with the facts.
Across the country, as protests against the president broke out on President's Day, Mr. Trump remained secluded at Mar-a-Lago before flying back to Washington. While he once criticized President Obama for golfing,
I'm going to be working for you. I'm not going to have time to go play golf.
it's the third straight weekend he's been on the links in the Florida sunshine, making time for his own rounds of golf.
And as the president prepares to fly back right now, we see pictures there. He will be coming to back here to the White House, where there are protests indeed happening on Pennsylvania Avenue. A few hundred people or so have been protesting throughout the day, talking about immigration, other things here. So just a sign, Jim, that as week 5 begins of the Trump presidency, he has that keyhole in his national security team filled, but still so many controversies left, including that immigration order that we expect later this week. Jim.
Jeff Zeleny at the White House, thank you. Joining me now with more on President Trump's pick for National Security Advisor, CNN Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr. Barbara, H.R. Mcmaster, I mean, beyond being a commander, I mean, one of the most famous tank battles of the Gulf War, real success in counterinsurgency in the Iraq War as well. Stellar reputation, would you say?
Indeed, very well known in Pentagon circles. As you pointed out, Jim, a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple tours of duty, knows Germany, knows Europe. One of the things he may have to come up to speed on is North Korea and the Pacific. Not a lot of field experience out there, but a guy with very capable management skills expected to bring some calm to the process.
This has been a difficult post for the White House to fill. We know that Vice Admiral Harward, he turned it down earlier in the week, ostensibly for personal reasons. We heard of other concerns he had about chaos in the White House. How do you expect Mcmaster to work alongside this president in this administration?
Well, first, of course, he's a currently serving military officer. He does not have the option to say no to his commander-in-chief. He had to take the job. So he will have to work a bit harder, I suppose, to carve out his territory. And people I'm already talking to say the key thing will be how he interacts with Steve Bannon, President Trump's very close advisor, very ideological, with unexpectedly a permanent seat on the National Security Council. Will those two jockey for power, or will General Mcmaster be able to take firm command of the process? Jim?
Barbara Starr, thank you very much. I want to bring in Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He also served in the Air Force in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Congressman, thanks for joining us on this holiday.
You bet.
So tell us about Mcmaster. I know you didn't serve together, but you know his reputation. What's your reaction to this pick?
Oh, I think it's a great pick. I mean, one of the great things about our country is there's so many good people to choose from, and he's one of them. So, you know, as you mentioned, he was in the largest tank battle since World War II, the Battle of 73 Easting. Did a great job in terms of counterinsurgency. But one of the actual kind of unsaid things is he wrote a book called Dereliction of Duty, where he talked about, you know, in essence, the military's responsibility to talk to civilian leaders, to challenge the status quo. And I think that's what we need in the White House. That's what we need in the Pentagon and in the National Security branch, is somebody that's willing to speak out and say, you know, we can't keep doing things like we're doing. We need to challenge the status quo. And he seems like the guy to do it.
Yeah, you bring up dereliction of duty. A big message in that was that political leaders kind of trumped the advice of military commanders in Vietnam. Of course, one criticism of the White House is what is the chain of command, right? And that was one of the reasons we understood that Harward took his name out. Well, what will be key for General Mcmaster to be a successful national security advisor in your view?
Well, he obviously has to understand he works for the president, and all you see in the 8 years of President Obama, the 8 years of President Bush prior, ultimately the president makes the decision. President Bush went against the advice of some of his generals and did the surge in Iraq, which was right. And so he has to understand that his role is to be an advisor to the president, to give him the best advice he can, but ultimately he has to do what the president says. But I think he has the kind of pedigree, and I think he has the kind of reputation to be able to challenge President Trump, and I think that's what President Trump frankly wants as he tries to get his NSC in order.
So we had President Trump, in effect, picking a fight with an ally, a public fight with an ally over the weekend, quoting what seemed to be false, possibly, or at least exaggerated reports of migrant problems in Europe, in Sweden specifically. We've had other cases of this, where, you know, with Australia and elsewhere, where you have these public spats seemingly over meaningless things. From your perspective, how damaging are these things? I mean, they're often dismissed by some Republicans. Well, listen to watch what he does rather than listen to what he says. But these seem to be having a real effect on these relationships.
Well, I think words have an impact, and I think where the impact can be is in people looking at this saying, well, you know, where did that come from? It kind of came out of left field. You know, the former prime minister with his tweet. I think it's more of an embarrassment that this happened. I don't think this is the kind of thing that's going to destroy the diplomatic relation with Sweden. But, you know, as we've said, when you get in campaign rallies, I've done campaign rallies, sometimes, you know, you get in front of yourself and you say things that you look back and say, I shouldn't have said them. I think this was a mistake. It was an embarrassment. But at the end of the day, look, our relationship with Sweden is fine. Again, the people around the president are very good. I just think he needs to be a little more conscious and caging his words in terms of when he talks about allies and things along that line.
Diplomatically put, Congressman Kinzinger, on another issue, on the travel ban, CNN's reporting is that the president will likely this week release a modified executive order, among other things, exempting green card holders, which was one of the issues here. I know that in the past you'd expressed your reservations about the first executive order. Will a change like that be enough for you to support this measure?
Well, it depends. I want to see what it finally looks like. As I've said, every president, every new administration, I think, has a responsibility to ensure that the vetting process is correct and everything else. I think, obviously, the way the last one was rolled out was bad when you have, in essence, green card holders, permanent citizens, people that worked with us as translators in Iraq that were caught up in that. Hopefully that doesn't happen in this next one. I think it's within his authority to do it. But the other thing, the only other kind of concern I have is if, and it sounds like they are, if Iraq is included. Iraq right now is our chief ally in fighting the war on terror against ISIS. I think it doesn't send a great message. You know, in fact, we actually basically created the vetting standards in Iraq, and they have very tight vetting standards for who gets an Iraqi passport. But I do think this is within the president's purview, and if this new executive order cleans up what the 9th District Court overturned, it may stand.
Congressman Kinzinger, thanks very much.
As always, thanks.
A top European leader offered a stunning rebuke to U.S. leadership, and he did it standing on stage next to the Vice President, Mike Pence. We'll have more on that right after this.